The triggers are special type of procedures that allow for automatic processing of rules involved with an event, condition, or action. As we mentioned earlier, triggers are managed by DBMS and automatically run in response to an event like insert, update, or delete. They're activated before and after these events so that you can check for validity of input, for example, and then display the confirmation. For updates, the values before and after update could be compared and stored in an audit trail table. Just like the tables, views, procedures, and functions, triggers are created with create trigger statement, followed by the trigger name, timing, before or after, event, insert, update, or delete, the on keyword, followed by the name of the table for which this trigger or to which this trigger applies, and for each row keywords, meaning that each row affected fires an appropriate trigger. We will also discuss the naming convention for these types of triggers. And the last thing to note is that triggers, unlike procedures and functions, cannot accept any parameters. Before we proceed with some basic trigger examples, it is worth noting a few of the advantages of using triggers. First and foremost, the triggers are used to help maintain the referential integrity in the database, especially the more complex variety that cannot be specified with create table statements. Triggers are often used for error management and reporting, trying to catch a variety of errors even before they reach the database tier, that is, catch them in the middle or business application tier. We will demonstrate with our trigger example the use of triggers for auditing insert, update, and delete operations on a database table. The code template for insert trigger is located in the MySQL 443 trigger audit after insert.sql file. You will notice once we get to it the use of the new keyword to grab the newly inserted employee table values and insert them together with the timestamp and the message into employee audit table. So let's switch back to the notepad and MySQL for underscore 43 file, right? Well, first thing to get this going, we're going to have to discuss and then create this employee audits table, right? So it's going to insert some basic information about the employee that was recently inserted, okay, which is ID, last name, and first name. In addition to that, it's going to have its auto-incremented 1, 2, 3 audit ID primary key, and then it's going to have a timestamp, both date and time down to a second, as well as the description about the appropriate type of audit. Okay, so we'll copy that, switch to Toad, run it, and then open it and leave it like that. Okay, so then the next step is to create the actual trigger, insert trigger on the employee table, right? So the name of the naming convention for these types of triggers is to use the timing after or before, the name of the table, employee in this case, and then whether it's insert, update, or delete. Okay, so we're going to use create trigger with this name, and after that there is no semicolons. Okay, this sort of, or open close parenthesis I should say, indicating that there is no input or output parameters. Okay, the next thing to do is to specify that this particular trigger is the after, has the after timing, insert operation on employee table for each row, okay, as we discussed earlier, right? So this is the timing, the type of operation on, and then the table name and these keywords for each row, meaning that each row that's affected will fire up appropriate trigger. Okay, then okay, so this is all still just these two rows of data, or I'm sorry, code, are still the header. Then we have the standard begin and end of this trigger, okay, and then the insert into employee underscore audit table. Okay, so audit emp ID is going to be the first one inserted, okay, because the audit ID is automatically generated. Then we have the audit emp last, audit emp first, audit emp created, okay, and then audit description. Okay, the values are coming from these variables these variables new dot employee ID, right? So notice the use of the keyword new, and employee ID is the column. So the newly inserted employee ID is right this 98 right here. Same for new dot last name, okay, new dot first name. Okay, then we have the what is it called, current underscore time stamp that's going to grab the current date and time, comma, the description of the audit, which is inserted new employee or something appropriate like that. Okay, forgot the semicolon. As I'm going on with these, I'm forgetting more and more of these semicolons. I'll copy that, paste it, run it, clear it, and then go and test it with a testing procedure. Okay, so I'm going to see if the testing procedure compiles, and then we're going to first of all refresh the triggers so you can see refresh so you can see the triggers have this specific type of icon with a finger pointing. Procedures refresh, we should get test new EMP trigger, and then we're going to run it. Okay, you're not going to see anything but a call message here and one row is affected. Okay, so two things to do is to go to the tables, go to the employee. There should be employee number 98 at the bottom, Smith Joe, without any of the other info. But in addition to that, employee audit table should have the audit ID 1 or some other random integer, employee ID 98, Smith Joe. The employee created whatever the current date and time you did this, and then the description inserted new employee. Okay, so I'm going to leave that open, go back here and clear. All right, now we're going to go back to the trigger procedure number 43, save it, close it, and just talk about on the slide, we're going to talk about the structure of the before and after update triggers. Okay, we're going to modify the newly inserted record, and those structures are very similar to the insert trigger we just did. Okay, and it's going to be located in script number 44, MySQL 4 underscore 44 trigger before after update.sql, and then we'll conclude the trigger examples with on delete trigger in MySQL 4 underscore 45 trigger audit after delete.sql. So 45 is our last example. So the last two are right here. 44 and 45 are next to it. So the only thing that I left sort of for us to do in both of these examples is to just review them. Okay, this is the before employee update trigger that needs that before timing. It needs the update as operation and on employee table for each row. Okay, and that's the same as while I'm at it for the after trigger, right? It's just that the before needs to be replaced by after update, right? So this one fires before the update, this one fires after update. So before the update, and the update, as you see, is just a change of a first name for that very same employee. For the before update, what we want to do, we want to insert the employee ID. Okay, and right now this is going to be the old employee ID because it already exists. Okay, that's going to be the first one. The second one is going to be old dot last name. Okay, comma, and then I have these commas here. Old dot first name. Okay, and then the current timestamp, and then before modifying existing employee. Okay, so notice the use of the old keyword 3 times here, right? So you're going to get 98, you're going to get Smith, and you're going to get what was its name? Switch back. What was his name? Jim, I think. Joe. Okay, right. And then we're going to, change it to Joseph, and that is going to be inserted into the employee audit table after the update has been made. Okay, so here I already did the after update, and I'm going to have a similar set of values, except I'm going to have to now get rid of some of these commas, except then I'm going to have the new first name. Okay, so old employee ID, old last name, but now new first name, which should be grabbing Joseph here. And then the message that says this is after modifying existing employee. Okay, so now we'll first, as usual, copy paste the procedures or triggers, in this case, one by one, see if they compile. Yep, as long as we're not forgetting any semicolons or anything else, that should be the case. And then we got the testing procedure, okay, as well. But I'm going to run that one as well. Now, triggers, after refresh, there should be 3: before employee update, after employee update. And then for the procedures, there should be test update. I have to refresh that. Test update triggers. When I run that, again, nothing's going to happen here other than just the fact that it was called. So we're going to have to go, oh, where are we? That's not right. We're going to have to go to the table. First of all, employee, go down to the bottom and review that now it's Joseph instead of Joe. Okay, and then also look at the audits table and notice 2 additional rows, the audit IDs 2 and 3 on the same employee, 9898, last name Smith. Before update it was Joe, after the update was Joseph. If you take a look at these times, right, I did this for about 4 minutes after the insertion, and these 2 guys, basically executed simultaneously, right? Finally, our very last example, I'm going to save this, close it, is the on or after delete trigger. After delete trigger, or after employee delete, which needs the timing after delete operation on employee table for each row. Okay, and then for the third time, I don't remember if I still have the same thing. Nope, I sure don't. Going to be old dot employee ID. Right, these are all old now. Notice the use of old, last name, old first name. Okay, deleted an existing employee. It should be, of course, time stamped and deleted and triggered when we're deleting our employee 98. So I'm going to copy, see if this trigger first of all compiles. Okay, then we're going to compile the testing procedure. Hopefully that one compiles as well. Then we're going to look and notice that this is our 4th and last trigger. And then on the procedures, after refresh, we're going to test delete employee trigger. Call that. Notice that it ran. Okay, go to tables, employee data all the way to the bottom. There should not be any Joseph Smiths anymore, and the audit trail table should have now 4 records, the 4th being the time of deletion 3 minutes after I did the updates. Okay, and 7 minutes after the whole insertion took place. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to close Toad for now. I'm going to save, make sure save and close the notepad as well. Switch back to the presentation and have my summary slide. Finally, we came to an end of a series of videos on stored procedures and triggers. We discussed the need for programming language access to DBMSs, described how general and specialized programming languages are used for database programming, and discussed the 2 types of integration between PL and SQL. We then reviewed the use of basic programming constructs in the context of database programming with MySQL's flavor of PLSQL. Created a number of stored procedures for retrieval from database as well as DB modification using input and output parameters. We also emphasized the difference between a single versus multi-row result from stored procedures, where multi-row record sets processed via the use of cursors. We concluded this lesson by showing how to create few basic triggers fired by events related to database modification which is the insert, update, and delete, both before and after these operations take place. We will practice some of these examples and skills with additional examples in our assignment and lectures next.